Do you believe that someone out of the past, someone dead, can enter and take possession of a living being?
No.
A memory is as effective as a ghost when it comes to a haunting. In Vertigo, the deceptive haunting of Madeline by Carlotta is mirrored beautifully by the very real and tragic haunting of Scotty by his own memories. When we think of possession by a vengeful spirit, we think of being forced to do things, compelled to say things. A vengeful spirit solidifies a pattern, dooming tragic events to repeat themselves, occurring over and over again. In the first half of the film, Madeline supposedly visits a number of places because she's possessed by Carlotta. In the second half of the film, after what appears to be Madeline's death, Scotty visits the same places in a daze, half aware as if he was possessed by his memories of Madeline. He even repeats certain lines.
Oh, it's too late. There's something I must do.
One final thing I have to do. It was too late.
It's as if he's uttering words to an omen. Indeed, shortly after, the curse seems to repeat itself. Judy, newly transformed into Madeline, falls or jumps to her death. In addition to being a well-crafted mystery about appearances and deception, Vertigo is also a story of repetition, visually represented by the intricate, never-ending spiral. What is a spiral but a pattern that never breaks loose? It stays the same course, doomed to repeat itself indefinitely. So do the events in Vertigo, oftentimes right down to the camera angle, so much so that the second half of the film can be seen as a funhouse mirror distortion of the first half of the film. These uncanny repetitions result from a simultaneous desire to get away from the past as well as to relive it, a conflict each character feels. Gavin is nostalgic for the good old days of San Francisco, the days of power and freedom. To achieve freedom, he must sever some of his past ties, including his vows to his wife. We find out that Midge somehow used to be engaged to Scotty, and she's trying everything she can to recover that relationship. Her efforts are futile. Judy is simultaneously afraid of unraveling her past, as well as desirous to recreate it due to her affections for Scotty. Scotty obviously has a morbid need to recreate the past. It's metaphorical necrophilia as he tries to resurrect the late Madeline using the vehicle of Judy's body so he can finally consummate their relationship. Here, the color green comes in handy, both as a symbol of the uncanny, of death coming back to life, and also the cyclical nature of life.
Their true name is Sequoia sempervirens. Always green, ever living.
Green is the color of an unsettling but welcome return, arising from the grave. Disturbing and beautiful, like a sudden intrusion of a very vivid memory of a loved one, perhaps long since gone. It's no surprise that Judy first appears wearing green, and green light illuminates her final and complete transformation into Madeline. Trying to replicate the past is inherently a morbid action, a bit like trying to catch a ghost. The memories are always there, haunting you, teasing you, but too ephemeral to ever manifest themselves again in reality. It's impossible to freeze time, and the closest we can get is in a silly museum model, or in death, with all its finality. Perhaps this is the thematic reason Judy plunges to her death. The act of replication always comes at a cost to the original. Gavin creates Judy as a mirror image of Madeline, which results in Madeline's death. When Scotty recreates Judy as Madeline again, he's unknowingly making a copy of a copy, which understandably would lead to some psychological confusion, especially as real identities are being destroyed for the sake of fantasy. We see some of the psychological ramifications of this in a very odd scene in which Midge, seeing Scotty's fascination with Madeline, decides to paint herself as Carlotta. This is a desperate attempt to represent herself as an object of desire in Scotty's eyes, but it doesn't work and he is very disturbed.
Oh, it's not funny, Midge.
I think this is because she doesn't go all the way, being thankfully more practical than Judy. Her head looks super uncanny on Carlotta's torso. If you try to fit a fantasy, you have to go all the way. Once Judy begins her transformation into Madeline, like stepping off a ledge, there's no stopping the fall. She tries to salvage some of her identity by refusing to pin the rest of her hair up, but it's too late. Is it any surprise then that the story can't end until she's at the bottom? Once she starts looking like Madeline, she probably starts thinking like her too, leading her to wear Carlotta's necklace, which instantaneously reveals her true identity to Scotty. In the climactic moment near the end of the film, Scotty criticizes her for keeping the souvenirs of a killing.
You shouldn't keep souvenirs of a killing. You shouldn't have been that sentimental.
This is interesting because in realizing her mistake, he subconsciously realizes his own mistake. If anyone is sentimental, it's him. He's the one who kept a very important souvenir of the killing, his obsessive memory of Madeline. The only person who's not sentimental at all is Gavin, the only winner in the film. In the beginning of the film, he speaks about how he prefers San Francisco in the past rather than the present.
Well, San Francisco's changed. The things that spell San Francisco to me are disappearing fast. Yes, I should have liked to have lived here then. Color, excitement.
But he doesn't try to somehow live in this romantic version of San Fran that no longer exists. In fact, he decides to move out of town after Madeline's death. Obviously to remove himself from the crime, but it's also to show he's capable of moving on from the past, disentangling himself from the spiral. Scotty and Judy, on the other hand, remain in San Francisco and fester, hoping to recapture their brief, ephemeral love. In most films, at the end of Act 2, there would be some sort of death, but in Vertigo, it's the opposite. Someone we think has died is revealed to be alive, but there's another kind of death. The persona of Madeline, which is more important to Scotty anyway, is revealed to have never existed. Judy's death is one of the most frustrating things to someone who just wants them to live happily ever after, but it's narratively perfect because how can you possess something that was never real in the first place? Once Scotty realizes the impossibility of replicating the past, the uncanny chasm between expectations and reality closes up, and he overcomes his vertigo. Thanks for watching.